The fog rolled thick over the docks of Copper Bay, a weathered fishing village perched on Washington's jagged coast, where the tang of salt and diesel hung heavy in the air on a damp January evening. The harbor's lone tavern, the Salty Lantern, glowed like a beacon through the mist, its windows steaming with the warmth of fishermen's tales and the clink of pint glasses. Behind the bar stood Maggie O'Connell, a wiry 60-year-old with a mop of red-gray hair and a tongue sharp enough to gut a cod. At her post for nearly 3 decades, she ruled the tavern with a keen eye and a knack for spotting trouble, or so she believed. Tonight, as the regulars swapped yarns and the jukebox hummed an old sea shanty, the door creaked open, admitting a stranger whose silent arrival carried a weight Maggie couldn't place. Before the fog lifted, that stranger would cast a light on truths she'd never seen coming, turning her salty kingdom upside down in ways no storm ever had. Maggie's life was woven into the fabric of Copper Bay. She'd grown up on these docks, daughter of a crabber who'd taught her to tie knots before she could write her name. She'd married young, lost her husband to a rogue wave in '92, and taken over the Salty Lantern when her father retired, turning it into the heart of the village. Her hands bore the scars of hauling kegs, her laugh the gravel of late nights, and her memory held every face that crossed her threshold. Locals, drifters, the lot. She prided herself on reading them all. Who'd pay, who'd brawl, who'd slink off into the fog. The tavern thrived under her watch, cod chowder simmering, a battered piano in the corner, a wall of faded photos from decades past, and Maggie stood as its undisputed captain. Tonight, the place buzzed with its usual rhythm. Old Pete, a grizzled fisherman with a beard like seaweed, nursed a stout at the bar, swapping tales with Lila, a retired netmender who'd seen more storms than most. The jukebox crooned, a couple of deckhands played darts, and Maggie leaned on the counter, polishing a glass that didn't need it, her eyes scanning the room. The door's creak cut through the noise, and heads turned as a figure stepped in. A black woman in her late 60s, her frame slight but steady, dressed in a plain raincoat and a knit cap pulled low. She carried a walking stick, its tip tapping softly as she crossed the threshold, her face etched with lines of resilience. The chatter dipped, then resumed, but Maggie's gaze lingered. The woman eased onto a stool at the bar's far end, resting her stick against the wood with a faint clack. Maggie sauntered over, her rag over her shoulder, her voice carrying that brassy edge she used to test newcomers. "What'll it be, stranger?" she asked, sizing her up, raincoat too clean, posture too poised for a fisherman's haunt. "Tea, hot," the woman replied, her tone calm but firm, her eyes meeting Maggie's without a flinch. "Black, no sugar." Maggie raised an eyebrow, pouring from a kettle she kept for herself. "Tea in a tavern. We've got ale, whiskey, chowder. Real dockside fare. You sure that's all you want?" She slid the mug over, a smirk tugging her lips, loud enough to draw a snort from Pete 2 stools down. The woman nodded, unfazed. "Tea's fine, thanks." She cradled the mug, her gaze drifting over the tavern, past the scuffed tables, the photo wall, the knot of regulars by the dartboard. Maggie leaned in, her elbow on the bar. "Not from Copper Bay, are you? Got that look, like you're studying us." The woman's eyes flicked back, steady as stone. "Passing through," she said, sipping her tea. "Taking it in." Maggie chuckled, a rough bark that turned Lila's head. "Taking it in? This ain't a postcard, lady. It's a watering hole. Folks drink, they jaw, they stumble home. Simple." Pete grinned, egging her on, but the woman didn't blink, her silence a tide Maggie couldn't stem. Minutes passed, and Maggie's curiosity soured into something prickly. She straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. "Most who stop here got a yarn to spin. You're sitting there like a clam. What's your deal?" "Don't need a yarn," the woman said, setting her mug down. "Just here to listen." She slid a crumpled 10 across the bar. "Keep it." Maggie's grin faltered. "Tea's $3, hun. What's this, trying to buy my good graces? Her tone sharpened, testing. Call it a tip, the woman replied, rising with a careful grip on her stick. She turned toward a door marked Private behind the bar, and Maggie's patience snapped like a taut line. Hey, whoa, you can't go back there, Maggie barked, rounding the counter. The woman kept moving, unbothered, and pushed the door open, stepping inside. Maggie spun to Pete, incredulous. You see that? Who she thinks she is? Pete shrugged, sipping his stout. Beats me, Mag. Maybe you ought to ask. Muttering, Maggie charged after her, boots thumping the warped floor. She didn't know it yet, but the night was about to flip like a boat in a squall, and the lesson waiting beyond that door would echo long after the last glass was wiped. She shoved the door wide, ready to unload, but the sight froze her tongue. The woman sat at a rickety desk in the cluttered back room. Old ledgers, fishing charts, a cracked lamp casting shadows. She flipped through a logbook, her stick propped nearby, her fingers tracing faded ink. "What in blazes are you doing?" Maggie demanded, her voice bouncing off the walls. The woman looked up, her expression cool as the sea. "I could ask you the same, Maggie." The use of her name hit like a rogue wave. "How do you know me? And who are you to waltz in here like you own the damn place?" The woman leaned back, folding her hands. "Because I do. Name's Cora Ellis. I'm the owner of the Salty Lantern." Maggie blinked, her mind reeling. "Owner? You're off your rocker. This is Tommy Drake's joint. Been that way since I was a kid." Cora shook her head, a faint smile breaking through. "Tommy was my uncle. He passed 2 years back, left this to me in his will. I've been keeping an eye on it from Seattle, checking books, hearing whispers. Tonight, I came to see it up close." Maggie's jaw worked, the pieces slamming together. Tommy, gruff, barrel-chested Tommy, had run the lantern forever, slinging drinks and spinning tales until cancer took him. Word was he'd left it to kin, but Maggie never imagined this. "You're lying," she said, though doubt crept in. "Prove it." Cora reached into her raincoat, pulling out a keychain. Rusted keys Maggie knew by heart, the spares Tommy kept in a drawer. "These say otherwise," Cora said, setting them on the desk. Maggie stared, the truth sinking in like wet sand. Cora's voice hardened, steady but sharp. "I've been watching you, Maggie, for months. Heard how you greet folks, how you judge 'em before they sit. Tonight sealed it." Maggie's face burned, defiance flaring. "What's that mean? I keep this place afloat, run it better than most. You can't just—" "I can," Cora cut in, standing now, her stick in hand. "You've got a habit of picking who belongs. Strangers, locals, me. That ends here." She stepped past Maggie, heading back to the tavern floor. Maggie trailed her, her certainty unraveling. The room hushed as Cora emerged, Maggie a step behind. Regulars paused, glasses midair, sensing the shift. Cora raised her voice, clear as a bell. "Evening, folks. I'm Cora Ellis, new owner of the Salty Lantern. Took over from my uncle, Tommy Drake, a while back." A ripple of shock spread, gasps, widened eyes, a dart dropping to the floor. Cora turned to Maggie, her gesture firm. "And this woman's done her last pour here." Maggie's legs wobbled. "You're firing me? For what? A few jabs." "For dismissing people who walk through that door," Cora said, unflinching. "For acting like this tavern's your fiefdom. Everyone's welcome here. Fishermen, wanderers, me. You lost sight of that." The crowd murmured, Pete nodding slowly, Lila's lips pursed in quiet agreement. Maggie sputtered. "I was keeping it lively. It's how I roll." "Lively doesn't mean cutting," Cora replied, her tone final. "Grab your things, Maggie. You're done." The words landed like an anchor, heavy and cold. Maggie stood rooted, her pride crumbling as the reality hit. Slowly, she trudged to the back, snagging her coat and a worn photo of her and Tommy from the wall. The tavern watched in silence, a mix of stunned respect settling in. Cora faced the crowd, her demeanor easing. "This place is a lifeline. Tommy made it that way. I'm here to keep it strong, open to all. No one gets sized up, no one gets shunned. That's my word." The room broke into applause, not loud, but steady, the kind born of weathered souls who'd seen enough to value fairness. Cora nodded, a quiet resolve in her eyes. Maggie slipped out the side door, the fog swallowing her, the chill biting deeper than the sea. Weeks rolled into months, and the salty lantern found a new current under Cora's steady hand. She didn't bark orders or strut, just worked the bar with a calm presence, hiring a new barkeep, a jovial widower named Sam who welcomed everyone like kin. The regulars adapted. Some missed Maggie's bite, but most warmed to the change. The tavern felt softer, truer, a haven where tales flowed free and no one felt judged. Cora kept her stick by the till, a silent sentinel as she poured pints or pored over logs. Patrons grew curious. Her logistics passed, her return for Tommy's legacy, and she'd share snippets. A career managing ports, a promise to honor her uncle. She listened more than she spoke, catching the weariness in a fisherman's sigh, the pride in a net mender's yarn. One night, Lila lingered after her chowder, approaching Cora with a weathered smile. "You've done right by this place," she said. "Maggie had her charm, but she didn't see us. Not like you." Cora tipped her cap. "Takes years to see clear, Lila. I'm still learning." Lila left a hefty tip, vanishing into the fog. Cora turned back to the bar, the tavern humming around her. A trust from Tommy, now hers to uphold. She'd faced Maggie's bluster not for vengeance, but for principle, and the reward was this: a dockside refuge, every soul welcome. Maggie didn't fade entirely. Word was she'd taken a job at a bait shop, quieter now, her edge dulled. Some said she'd learned, others weren't sure. But at the Salty Lantern her absence carved room for something greater, a lesson inked into the wood and fog that respect anchors more than swagger ever could. For Cora, it was enough. She'd arrived a stranger, misjudged and overlooked, only to claim her place and set the tide right. One light reshaped the tide. This tale proves that respect anchors stronger than pride. If Cora's stand stirred you, drop a like to show it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that warm the soul. What would you defend like this dockside haven? Share your wisdom in the comments below. We're all listening. Until next time, carry this close. Quiet strength outlasts the loudest storms.